Hello everyone, and welcome to our first class lecture. In this presentation and the one that follows, I'll be discussing selected concepts from Chapter 1 in our textbook. And whereas I won't cover the whole chapter and lecture presentation, you are expected to have a good understanding of all the concepts from each week's reading. In the recorded lectures, I'll focus either on areas of extra importance or areas that sometimes prove difficult for students. In other recorded lectures, I'll demonstrate how to solve problems or how to use Excel in data analysis. One thing your textbook will provide better than my lectures are rich examples from social research, and so I highly recommend you give both the text and the lectures your equal attention. To give an overview of Chapter 1, the nature of social research was discussed, as well as various research methods used in sociology. Sociologists sometimes conduct experiments which involves manipulating variables, controlling for other variables, and random assignment. And at other times they use survey methodologies or content analysis or secondary analysis. If you've not taken your research methods course yet, you will learn more about these methods in greater depth. Also presented were the stages of social research, and you will notice the fourth stage, analyzing data, is the focus of this course. And finally, the chapter talked about two functions of statistics: to describe data and to make inferences. The first half of the course will be spent looking at what are called descriptive statistics, and the second part will focus on inferential statistics, or making inferences to a larger population based on what is measured in a smaller sample. This lecture will focus on one concept from Chapter 1, using series of numbers to do social research, and the lecture that follows that will address independent and dependent variables. So first we'll start with levels of measurement. How we measure a variable influences what we can do with it, and this will make more sense as the course progresses. There are three levels of measurement that we will discuss today: nominal, ordinal, and interval/ratio. Nominal measures are pretty easy to remember because the word nominal comes from the Latin for name. With nominal measures, we are just naming a category to which the variable belongs. When we enter a nominal variable into a data file, numbers are often assigned to a set of categories to name, label, or classify. But don't be fooled. The number for each category with nominal variables is not meaningful. So some examples of nominal variables can be gender, political affiliation, and ethnicity. And as you can see in these examples, we might assign each category a number or a code, but that's only for grouping purposes in a data set. The numbers in this case are not numeric, but rather they indicate categories. So here is a challenge. I would like you to find the average of the following political parties. So we have 2 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 4 independents. What is the average? Could you do it? No, you can't. Finding the average of a nominal variable doesn't make any sense. As you can see on the right, using a computer, I could technically compute an average from these scores. But what would, say, an average score of 2.4 mean in this case? It's not interpretable. So what can we do with nominal data? Well, we can report frequencies, such as with a bar graph or a pie chart. I've got a bar graph here and a pie chart here. All right, I'm going to show you some more examples of a bar graph and a pie chart. Take a look at these graphs. Okay, yes, we can have fun with statistics. The next level of measurement is ordinal, and another easy way to remember it is from the Latin for ordered. In this case, we assign numbers to rank ordered categories, and the numbers represent low to high on some measure. One example of an ordinal scale might be a measure of happiness. If you were asked to respond to how happy you are on a scale from 1 to 10, 4 would indicate more happiness than 2, but less happiness than an 8. Social class is another example. The numbers 1, 2, and 3 in this case relates to how much relative financial resources an individual possesses. There's not a specific money amount indicated, but rather just numbers that show order. Pie charts and bar charts are also used to depict ordinal data. The third level of measurement is interval ratio. In this case, numbers actually do have meaning. With interval ratio, we know exactly the size of the interval between the attributes on a scale. Some examples of interval/ratio data include temperature, where there is a consistent difference between degrees on a thermometer, income if stated in dollars, SAT scores, and age in years. Now, I've lumped interval and ratio together for convenience because they both involve equal intervals on a scale. But ratio has an actual 0 point. Think of weight on a scale has an actual 0 point, whereas interval has an arbitrary 0 point. Think about a thermometer, where 0 is just an arbitrary number. Ratios are rarely used in social research, and so interval measures will be of more interest for the social researcher. Interval and ratio data are presented using line graphs and histograms, and I'm going to show you a histogram here. Note that the histogram is different from the bar graph in that the bars touch on the histogram, and the numbers on the x-axis on the bottom represent the range of the interval. And we'll learn more about these histograms as the course goes on. We can't tell the level of any variable by knowing just its name. We need to know how it is measured. This information is available in a study codebook that outlines specifically how variables are measured in a study. For example, what level of measurement is income? Think about that for just a moment. Well, we don't actually know until we see how it is measured. So here are two examples of how income could be measured. What level is the first example? The first example says, what is your income entered to the nearest cent? Would that be nominal, ordinal, interval, or interval ratio? And the answer in this case is going to be an example of interval ratio, specifically ratio since money has an absolute 0. What about the second example? What is your income, low, middle, or high? That is an ordinal measure. Gender, age, and other variables can also be measured at different levels depending on how the item is written. Here is an example of what the data from our class survey might look like. As you look at the variables, you can likely start to identify the level of measurement. For example, age in the first column is interval ratio, specifically ratio, but gender and ethnicity are nominal. The fourth column, which is year in school, was not actually on our survey, but it's an example of an ordinal measure, 3 equals a junior and 4 equals a senior. Take a moment to look over this chart and take notes as needed. Feel free to pause the slide to take notes. So in review, here are quick descriptions of each level of measurement. Again, pause the slide if you'd like to take notes. Let's take a moment to test yourself. What is the level of measurement for the variable of age? Is it interval ratio, ordinal, nominal, or not enough information? Think about that for a moment. If you said not enough information, you would be correct. If specific ages are listed, it is an example of interval ratio. If age categories are used, young, middle-aged, old, it is an example of an ordinal measure. Okay, here's another one. This is an example of what type of measure? What is your political party? 1 Republican, 2 Democrat, 3 Independent, 4 other. This is an example of a nominal measure. Here's one more. I'm pretty sure you understand that we would need to know how chocolate was measured before identifying the level of measurement. So in this case, We just don't have enough information. So that's it for levels of measurement for the time being. I highly recommend that you go through the problem sets at the end of the chapter to test your knowledge of levels of measurement. Remember, a scanned copy of Chapter 1 can be found in the Links Resources section on Blackboard. The answers to all the chapter problem sets are found in the back of the textbook, and I've included the answers in the scanned copy of Chapter 1 as well. Going through the problem sets is an excellent way to not only solidify your learning, but to prepare for quizzes and exams.